The watchtower is still controlling people's lives and ruining people's lives. The people who are still in there, they matter, and some of them are in danger. What do you do when you've done all you can? Seems like you can't make it through. Tell me, what do you say when a Jehovah's Witness knocks on your door? That's what we're going to talk about in this video, because I'm convinced, now more so than ever, that Christians need to actively be engaging with this group. And part of the reason I'm doing this video is because I recently connected with a couple of Jehovah's Witnesses. We've already done one coffee, and we are supposed to be meeting up again soon. So y'all please keep all of us in prayer about that situation. But yeah, in preparation for those future meetups, I've just been trying to do my homework on all things J-Dub. So I talked to a friend of mine. She was a Jehovah's Witness for like decades. And then I've been watching YouTube videos from some of my favorite people who've done good content on that, like Melissa Doherty.
I genuinely love the Jehovah's Witnesses, even if I think they have dangerous and horrible theology.
Mike Winger.
So Jehovah's Witness teaching about salvation, the things that these people are taught, and my heart goes out to Jehovah's Witnesses. I care for them, but I hate the things they're taught because they're not true.
Cultish.
So they're really only taught to accept materials approved by the official Watchtower Bible and Tract Society organization.
And then my friend Veda, he was on a couple of those shows, and he gave a good method for using the New World Translation to actually witness to Jehovah's Witnesses. So that was pretty cool.
But from a Jehovah's Witness perspective, where they're attempting to argue that Jesus is not Jehovah God, clearly he is, according to their text.
Shout out to Veda about that one. So anyway, yeah, I've been trying to do my homework. And another reason I'm doing this video is because I've also been listening to the testimonies of ex-J-Dubs, and a lot of them are honestly heartbreaking. I mean, there are just some really devastating stories, and I just had no idea that this kind of stuff was going on behind closed doors. Because, you know, you just look at Jehovah's Witnesses as people who kind of show up at inopportune times, and you're like, I don't really want to be bothered by them. So if they knock on the door, ring the doorbell, I'm just going to go about my business, act like I ain't heard it. You know, kind of like that scene in Friday. I think it was the opening scene, and the two Jehovah's Witness ladies knock on the door, and Ice Cube's character, I think he either said something nasty to them or just slammed the door in their face.
Are you prepared for Jehovah's return? Because if you're not, I have a pamphlet.
It's just like, man, in hindsight, that wasn't very nice. But no, Christians, we need to be talking to them, because a lot of these folks are really in vulnerable situations. So I'm going to talk about a few of those things in this video. As a matter of fact, I've listed 7 things in my handy dandy notebook, or maybe 7 reasons why I think Christians should engage them in conversation and not just shoo them away like we may be tempted to do at times. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into it. The first reason is, as I've been watching these videos from ex-J-Dubs, I noticed that a lot of them are so disillusioned with how they were treated that not only do they leave the Kingdom Hall, but they leave faith altogether. They just typically become atheists and agnostics.
Because that's a lot of what led me to leave Jehovah's Witnesses. Was I saw this as morally repugnant. At this point, when I look at the world through an emotional view, also through a logical view, I can't come to the conclusion that God exists and is loving and is powerful and cares about us.
I'm not a believer in the Bible anymore. I'm not part of any religion. I'm just me.
Some, of course, do become Christians, but, you know, it's just not always what happens. And that's just, you know, it's just sad. So we have the true gospel, and we not only want them to leave the Kingdom Hall, but we want them to come into the knowledge of... That ain't nothing but the devil. Yo, my camera almost fell. Anyway, okay, so not only do we want them to leave the Kingdom Hall, but we want them to know the true gospel, and we want them to receive eternal life through the gospel of Jesus Christ. So anyway, okay, so that's the first reason why Christians should engage them. Okay, so the next thing on the list is this issue of blood transfusions, because as many of y'all probably know, Jehovah's Witnesses are not allowed to get blood transfusions, which is obviously a huge problem, especially if you or someone you love is in the organization and you have a medical emergency and you need a blood transfusion. The Kingdom Hall is going to advise you to refuse those services. And that's just crazy, right? That's right. right? So you can either get the blood transfusion, probably save your life, and then maybe get disfellowshipped, or you can do what the Kingdom Hall wants you to do and possibly risk your life and most likely end up in an eternity in hell because you don't have the true gospel. So that's just terrible. So yeah, the blood transfusions thing, it's just like, think about it as Christians. If you witness to someone the day before or maybe an hour before they met some kind of tragic accident and needed this procedure, if you can get through to them with the gospel, you very well could save their life or a family member's life. Just saying.
We had a friend who died. She was only 21. She died by denying blood transfusion. Doctors escorted her family out of the room before she went under. They told her, said, hey, I know your family's pressuring you to not take blood, but we can really save your life. And her response was that I'm an adult. I make my own decisions. I don't want blood. And, I remember at the funeral talk, they were saying how courageous that was and how she stood up for her faith. And I remember being so encouraged from that. And now thinking back, she died for nothing. And I felt horrible about that.
Okay. All right. The next one. This one is pretty difficult to talk about for a lot of different reasons. And I have to be careful what I say because I'm not trying to have this video flagged. But there is a lot of documentation about children who have been harmed in the worst ways by this organization.
For the third time in 9 months, the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office is announcing those charges all against men who are Jehovah's Witnesses.
Abuse allegations tonight against Jehovah's Witnesses.
The story might sound familiar, but this time it involves Jehovah's Witness churches. The church and its national elders today hit with twin lawsuits stemming from alleged sexual abuse of children.
A jury has convicted a Jehovah's Witness of abusing a child.
48-year-old Heather Steele of Winter Garden claims she suffered over a decade of sexual abuse by a member of the Jehovah's Witness congregation her family belonged to in upstate New York.
Part of the reason for that is because they have what's called this 2-witness rule. So you have to have 2 witnesses witness something bad happening to you before the organization will take the allegation seriously.
So let me explain what the 2-witness rule is, and I'll give you a little background. So in each congregation, there is what's called a body of elders, and the body of elders consists of maybe like 5 to 10 men who are considered overseers of the congregation. And these men have what is essentially a guidebook or a rule book on how to handle certain matters within the congregation. In that book, it states that there must be 2 witnesses to a sin in order for the person being accused to be punished in any sort of way. Or, of course, that person would need to confess to the sin. Where this becomes especially problematic is in instances of abuse, which would include domestic, SA, and child.
And I have a sneaking suspicion that they probably frown upon people getting law enforcement involved in these kind of matters. So basically, if someone hurts you and you and the person who hurt you are the only ones who saw it go down, then you don't really have any means to get help because you got to have 2 witnesses there. So yeah, that just puts children, and I'm sure plenty of women as well, in a very vulnerable situation that can cause them to be hurt in some pretty awful ways. So that's the next reason. All right, the next one is disfellowshipping. Now, I have some extended family, like family by marriage, that's associated with Kingdom Hall or was associated with it. Like one of my uncles was disfellowshipped, and as far as I know, it didn't really seem to impact his life that much. Didn't seem like he really cared. So I didn't think that that was as big of a deal as it is, but it is a really horrible thing to do somebody, to socially shun them, to isolate them. So if you do something that Jehovah's Witnesses deem as unacceptable, you could be disfellowshipped, where no one can talk to you. Your own family member might not be able to talk to you, and it can get really weird.
At this point, our family doesn't talk to us. Thankfully, my parents do. My parents are the exception. Jehovah's Witness parents do not typically have regular contact with their children when they've left. Thankfully, my parents do. My parents are good people who are not choosing a religion over their children. Your mom decided, because of things that have been posted on social media, that
no contact
at all.
But a lot of people leave the Jehovah's Witness faith and lose everything.
Yeah.
Even jobs.
Like if you go on the JW website, they've got different scenarios where like, okay, if you live with the person who's shunned, this is how you operate. If you don't live with them, this is how you operate. And it's just very strange. And I, for the life of me, could not imagine what it would be like for my family to say, I'm not going to talk to you anymore because we have a difference of theology. So instead of them trying to encourage me to come back and get back right with God, if they really believe they have the truth, they say, no, we're not going to talk to you at all. And that's just what it is. Now, I think you can get undisfellowshipped, but there's a process for that. But this is the crazy thing, and I didn't know this till I watched this TikTok video. But apparently, if you've never been baptized as a Jehovah's Witness and you choose to not practice Jehovah's Witness theology, then your JW practicing friends and family, they can associate with you. But if you have been baptized into JWs, and then you decide you don't believe the faith anymore, you want to leave the Kingdom Hall, or if they, disfellowship you or whatnot, your family cannot talk to you at all. So there was a story on TikTok of a man whose brother was disfellowshipped, and like he wasn't able to talk to his mom for about 40 or 50 years up until recently when they kind of lightened the stipulations on disfellowshipping.
My family was raised as Jehovah's Witnesses. And as Jehovah's Witnesses, once you get baptized and become a member, there's no getting out. If you decide to leave or have a change of heart later on, you get shunned, disfellowshipped, excommunicated, and the members are no longer allowed to speak to you. Now, obviously, this happens with a lot of young people who are raised inside of that culture, and then by the time they get old enough to make their own decisions, they realize it's not for them. If they never been baptized, they're usually good. They just drift off and become whoever they want to become. But if they ever was baptized as a teenager or an adolescent or even as a young adult, it comes with repercussions when you leave. My brother was one of those youth who was baptized as a teenager, my older brother, Anthony. By the time he was about 23 or whatever, he had a change of heart and he got disfellowshipped. From then on, my mom and my brother never had a relationship. They never spoke to each other, they never called each other, and they never visited each other. They might have seen or talked to each other 2 or 3 times over the next 30 years. This hurt my brother a lot. In March 2024, the Jehovah's Witnesses organization changed their policy on disfellowshipping, excommunicating, and shunning former members. They said that now family members and congregation members are allowed to speak to those people who were disfellowshipped before, as long as they're not trying to convert them or not actively participating in what they call apostasy, which is trying to teach people to turn away from that religion, which my brother has never done. He just wanted a normal life where he could be around his family. And now they're in their golden years. My mom is in her upper 80s. My brother is in his mid-60s. And finally, just a week or 2 ago, my mother formally agreed to let my brother come visit her.
But you've ruined this family for 40, 50 years? Man, that's crazy. So yeah, disfellowshipping can have very tragic results. I've even heard of people who chose to check out. They chose to unalive themselves because they lost everything once they were kicked out or chose to leave the Kingdom Hall. So that's very, very terrible. I also wonder too, like, what support can we offer them? Like if someone loses everything, loses their family, and maybe doesn't have a place to live anymore or something like that because they are no longer going to be a JW, how can we as churches support them? Let me know if y'all got any ideas about that. Let me know in the comments. Maybe your church already has something like that set up. I don't know. I've never seen anything like that, but now I'm just thinking through this whole process. I'm like, man, how can the church help support these people? Okay, so disfellowshipping, terrible. All right, the next thing is this goes back to the children. Now, this isn't as big of a deal, but I still think it's traumatizing. This whole idea that Jehovah's Witnesses can't celebrate birthdays and they can't do like things that are deemed secular or worldly, even if these are things that the Bible doesn't say anything about them being sinful. So for example, I heard some Jehovah's Witnesses talking about how when they grew up, if there was some kind of birthday party at their school or Valentine's Day party or something like that, and of course Christmas, they couldn't participate in any of those things. They would have to sit out in the hallway or go sit in another classroom. So basically they just couldn't be a part of it at all. And that really kind of messed them up, because a lot of these folks feel like my childhood was stripped from me because of this religion. And it was absolutely crazy. And you even look at people like Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson didn't celebrate Christmas until he was 35 years old.
It is 1993, and this will be Michael Jackson's very first Christmas. If you're a Jehovah's Witness, they don't celebrate Christmas. When he quit being a Jehovah's Witness, I said to Michael, I think Christmas is a wonderful way of celebrating love.
I had no idea she was planning this. This was a real surprise.
Because, you know, the Jacksons were Jehovah's Witnesses. I even noticed, I was watching a clip from the Jackson 5, The American Dream movie, and that scene where Michael Jackson threw the shoe at Joseph.
You have a place for your shoes. That is not the place.
Right before that, well, who was it? Tito? I can't remember if it was Tito or Jackie. And Joseph was asking them, like, whose shoe is that over there? And he was like, it's not mine. I promise. I swear before God and Jesus, or whatever he said.
Whose shoe is that?
It's not mine. I swear to God and Jesus, all of them.
I'm just like, oh, now I know why he said God and Jesus, because they don't believe that Jesus is God. So anyway, sidebar. Yeah, Jehovah's Witnesses don't let kids really just be kids. Even hearing people talk about having to go to these Kingdom Hall meetings so many times during the week. They're like, okay, we're in school all day from, 8 a.m. to 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Then having to go to the Kingdom Hall at 7:30, and you're at Kingdom Hall from 7:30 to 9:30, and they are super serious about kids not being able to make any noise, or they just have to sit there and be quiet. And if you do make noise, your parents will punish you. And if your parents aren't punishing you good enough, then the elders are looking at them. Everybody's looking at them like, why can't you control your kid? It was a hot mess. So kids who grow up JW, my goodness, my heart really goes out to y'all, because that is just very, very tragic. Okay, the next reason why I think Christians should engage the J-Dubs is because apparently sometimes people in the organization are deterred from getting married or having children because of this whole Armageddon situation. Like, they're so worried about the end of the world and how that's going to shake out. They're like, why would we bring kids in this situation? No, we're not going to do that. So we're just not going to have kids. And I'm just like,
I apologize for not having kids, because we were, that couple that we were not going to have kids on this side of Armageddon. We were going to wait until the new world to start a family and everything. Because of that, we made so much sacrifice for the organization. We're not in the financial position to have kids either.
That's awful. My friend who was a Jehovah's Witness for many, many years, she was telling me a story about a man who, I think he's a senior citizen now. He was told, like, don't have kids, don't get married. He never did. And so now he's a senior citizen, and he's apparently very lonely because he was advised to not start his own family. And that's just so sad that this organization had so much mental control over this man that he took away his opportunity to become a husband, a father, a grandfather, all this. The whole generation is just not there because Jehovah's Witnesses told them, don't do this. Very, very sad. Okay, the last one on my list is talking to people who don't share your worldview can actually be really good for Christians who want to learn how to be a strong evangelist, strong apologist. I know it made me a better apologist. So the reason I got into apologetics in the first place is because one of my friends from church became a Hebrew Israelite. And so we had a lot of debates about faith and the Bible and all this kind of stuff. And while I knew that he was wrong about his beliefs, I also recognized that there was a lot of stuff that I didn't know about my own faith. And I kind of just was believing Christianity, not because I had reasonable evidence, but because I just was hoping that it was true. And so now, not only do I love Christianity and know that it's a good religion, I also have great confidence that it is true based on a lot of different things: history, philosophy, science, morality, all these different things. So yeah, I just think talking to other religions will kind of sharpen you as a Christian, as a theologian, as an apologist, as an evangelist. So don't let yourself get too intimidated by talking to someone who doesn't agree with you or doesn't see the world like you do, because it can actually kind of open the door for you to investigate and get answers to questions that maybe you didn't even know you had, because there was plenty of questions I didn't know I had. Now I'm like, thank God that my friend, even with their falling away from the faith, if they ever were in the faith to begin with, it still worked out for my good, because, you know, I just learned a lot now. So it's just funny that my friend's conversion away from Christianity to this cult group actually ended up benefiting me, because now I know way more about Christianity than I ever did before. And I'm just so grateful for that. So yeah, those are just a few reasons why I think that Christians, we should, if we can, definitely engage this group, because you're probably going to run into one eventually. I thought, like, there's no reason for me to investigate the Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall stuff, because that's like an old school group and nobody's really doing that anymore and all this and that. And there's not really having a big impact. But the Watchtower is still controlling people's lives and ruining people's lives. Now, there might be a huge decrease in their numbers in recent years, but the people who are still in there, they matter. And some of them are in danger. And so I think if the gospel is a solution, and it is, like, why not share it with them? It could literally save a life. Just saying. Okay. All right. So thank y'all for watching this video. If you like what you saw and heard, please subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and turn on the notifications so that every time I upload, you'll get the notification about new videos. Thank you so much to all my channel members. If you're interested in supporting my YouTube channel, please consider becoming a channel member. And thank you to everyone who sends me random cash apps during the week. Y'all are such a blessing to me. All right, that's all I got for y'all in this one. I'll catch you in the next video.